Chapter 14, Buddhavagga, the Buddha, 179. By what track can you trace the trackless one, the Buddha of limitless range, whose victory nothing can undo, whom none of the vanquished defilements can ever pursue? 180. By what track can you trace the trackless one, the Buddha of limitless range, in whom exists no longer the entangling and embroiling craving that perpetuates becoming? So this can be the same, you can say the same, instead of the Buddha, you can say the arahan. All arahans are trackless. There's at least 2 suttas in the Nikayas where after the arahan passed away and the Buddha went to see his body and the Buddha said his consciousness will not take rebirth because that's one sutta where the arahan passed away and then the Buddha came to that corpse. Then the Buddha looked and then the Buddha told his disciples, "Can you see the dark cloud moving to and fro in the distance?" And the monk said, "Yes." And the Buddha said, "That is Mara looking for the consciousness of Akali, the Arahan." Then the Buddha said, he'll never find the consciousness of Akali, the Arahan, because the consciousness has ceased. This consciousness that we have, the 6th consciousness, is like a dream. When the 6th consciousness works, then the world is created. The world only exists in consciousness. So when a person becomes an Arahan, he has stopped the tendency of consciousness to flow. This tendency of the consciousness to flow is called asava. In Chinese it's called lo. So lo is the flow, basically the flow of consciousness. So when a person becomes an arahan, he has stopped this flow of this consciousness. So when he passes away, the consciousness stops flowing. So he becomes a trackless one. He cannot find his tracks anymore. And also his victory, nothing can undo. In other words, if even an Arya, any Arya, if an Arya attains the first stage or the first fruit, Sotapanna, or the second fruit, Sakadagamin, or the third fruit, Anagamin, or the fourth fruit, Arahan, he does not, it's not reversible. He cannot go on reverse gear, cannot undo what he has attained. It's forever, what he has attained is forever. 181. Those wise ones who are devoted to meditation and who delight in the calm of renunciation, such mindful ones, supreme Buddhas, even the gods hold dear. So those who are devoted to meditation, renounce and attain liberation, that means whether it's Buddha or Arahan. An Arahan can be said to be a self-enlightened, a Buddha can be said to be a self-enlightened Arahan. Because in the suttas, the Buddha says there's no difference at all between his enlightenment and his disciples' enlightenment. The Buddha said the only difference is that the Buddha is the first Arahan, the first one to walk the Noble Eightfold Path. And he's very conversant with the Noble Eightfold Path. And he teaches the Noble Eightfold Path. So in other words, the Buddha is the first Arahan. And the reason he's called the Buddha is because when the Buddha struggled for enlightenment, there was no Dhamma in the world. And then after becoming enlightened, and then also he became enlightened only because he cultivated the psychic powers and looked into the past. Then all the Dhamma that he had learned from Buddha Kassapa came back. And then remembering the Dhamma, he contemplated the Four Noble Truths and attained enlightenment. So this in the suttas, especially like in the Mahasamaya Sutta in the Digha Nikaya, the Buddha said these devas from far, they come to pay respect to the arahants. If there's any arahan in the world, these devas from the 10,000 world systems they know. So from far, even they stand in the sky, halfway in the sky, they bow down, pay respect to the arahants. 182. Hard is it to be born a human being. Hard is the life of mortals. Hard is it to gain the opportunity to hear the good Dhamma, and hard indeed to encounter the arising of the Buddhas. So it is very difficult to get the human body, and now we have it, because in the human body we can practice the Dhamma. If we are born as a Deva or a Devi, life is so good, you don't see suffering, you don't taste suffering, you're not inclined to practice the holy path. But here, because we see dukkha all around us, we see beings dying, we see beings becoming sick and becoming old. So we see impermanence, so we want to practice. So this life as a human being is extremely valuable. Only here in the human realm we can struggle to get out of samsara, not in the other realms of existence. So it's very difficult to hear the good Dhamma. And now that we are able to hear the good Dhamma, this is still the Dhamma age, not like what the Mahayanis say. This is the Dhamma ending age. For them it's the Dhamma ending age because they don't want to strive to get out of samsara. If you don't want to strive to get out of samsara, you're not practicing the Dhamma. You're only practicing worldly Dhamma, doing good and all that. But the Buddha's Dhamma is liberation. The Buddha says his Dhamma has one taste, the taste of liberation. Just like the sea has got one taste, the taste of salt. So does the Dhamma have one taste, the taste of liberation. So if we practice the Dhamma, this is the Dhamma age. It's as good as the Buddha was alive. Because even if the Buddha was alive, he only teach the Dhamma as we can get it now. And even if you were born during the Buddha's time, you must remember that you are not always with the Buddha. And the Buddha's talks were not recorded like now. So you might only be with the Buddha for a few days or a few weeks. And then the amount of suttas you can hear from the Buddha is so few. Right now we can listen to 5,000 original suttas of the Buddha. So this is a very, very good Dhamma age, where all the pure Dhamma brought down by the arahants. People like to say arahants are selfish, but actually we have the Dhamma today because of the arahants' work. If not for the arahants' hard work today, the Dhamma would not be with us. They have transmitted it by mouth, one generation after generation. And so now we get the Dhamma, and we know from the history of Buddhism that true Dhamma, the Buddha says, will last 500 years. That means unpolluted for 500 years. And during the 500 years that we had true Dhamma was during Emperor Asoka's time. And Emperor Asoka, he built these stone pillars where the words of the Buddha were carved out. And now that they dig up these old Asoka stone pillars, they see that the Dhamma that existed during Asoka's time were the 5 Nikayas. Only the 5 Nikayas. No Abhidhamma, no commentaries, no Mahayana Sutras. All those are later books. So we are lucky that the Dhamma during Emperor Asoka's time has been preserved down to us purely. So the true Dhamma is still with us. 183. To avoid all evil, to cultivate good, and to cleanse one's own mind. This is the teaching of the Buddhas. All Buddhas' teachings is basically this. To avoid all evil is to keep the sila. To do good is to be generous, practice charity. And to cleanse one's own mind is to meditate and develop the mind. 184. Enduring patience is the highest austerity. Nibbana is supreme, say the Buddhas. He is not a true monk who harms another, nor a real renunciant who oppresses others. This enduring patience, another word for it is forbearance. That means when we suffer, when people harm us, when people oppress us, we bear it. If you understand the Dhamma, then we understand whatever we get is the result of karma vipaka. So even if people are not good to us, and we understand the law of karma vipaka, then we understand we are getting what we have done to others. So we bear it, and this is enduring patience. It's the highest austerity. Nibbana is supreme. There's nothing higher than Nibbana. The Buddha also said, Nibbanang paramang sukha. Nibbana is the greatest bliss. So a real monk does not harm another or oppress another. 185. Not despising, not harming, restrain according to the patimokkha or the code of monastic discipline. Moderation in food, dwelling in solitude, devotion to meditation. This is the teaching of the Buddhas. Not despising others, not harming others, practicing the Vinaya code, the precepts, and then moderation in eating, that means at night we don't eat. Dwelling in solitude, devotion to meditation. This dwelling in solitude, the Buddha always encouraged the monks after 5 years of training to stay alone and devote themselves to meditation. This is the basic teaching of the Buddhas. But in later books, they changed this. For example, I was following Mahayana Buddhism and I took the Bodhisattva precepts. And among the Bodhisattva precepts, there's one precept that says you are not allowed to live alone in the forest, to dwell alone in the forest and practice meditation. If you do that, then you are breaking the Bodhisattva precepts. So this is contradictory to what the Buddha says. The Buddha himself used to love to dwell in solitude, and he encouraged his disciples to live in the forest. And later the Buddha said, even in his old age, he liked to live in the forest for two reasons. One, if a person is used to seclusion, he likes to be alone, so he finds happiness alone. Secondly, the Buddha said, for the benefit of later generations. So he wants later generations, that means people like us, to know that all these Buddha and Buddha's disciples like to live alone in the forest. Because when you live alone, nobody to talk to, nobody to distract you, then only you can attain high stages of meditation. 186 and 187. There is no satisfying sensual desires, even with a rain of gold coins, for sense pleasures give little satisfaction and entail much pain. Having understood this, the wise man finds no delight, even in heavenly pleasures. The disciple of the Supreme Buddha delights in the destruction of craving. These sensual desires, when we enjoy it, there is never enough of it. When we enjoy good food, then we want more and more, and better, good food. Never seem to be satisfied. And then liquor also the same. If a person likes liquor, he drink until he is drunk, he cannot drink anymore. And tomorrow he'll want to drink again until he's drunk again. Never satisfied. There's no limit. So it's very dangerous because we don't know our limits. But our body cannot take it. Our mind also cannot take it. Sometimes people enjoy until they blow their mind. Like taking drugs, a little bit, very strong, very nice. Then you take more, increase more and more and more until you blow the fuse. So this basically is saying that even if the gold coins rain down from heaven, you get so much gold, still they are not satisfied. In the suttas, the Buddha, this Mara came to tempt the Buddha and told the Buddha to stop meditating and told the Buddha he can turn the whole mountain into gold for the Buddha. And the Buddha said, even if you turn 2 mountains into gold also, there won't be satisfaction. So sensual pleasures can never be satisfied. Only satisfy us for a short time. 188. People driven by fear go for refuge to many places, to hills, woods, groves, trees and shrines. 189. This indeed is no safe refuge. This is not the refuge supreme. Not by resorting to such a refuge is one released from all suffering. 190 to 191. One who has gone for refuge to the Buddha, the Dhamma and the Sangha penetrates with wisdom the Four Noble Truths: suffering, the cause of suffering, the cessation of suffering, and the Noble Eightfold Path leading to the cessation of suffering. 192. This indeed is a safe refuge. This is the refuge supreme. Having gone to such a refuge, one is released from all suffering. When we have fear, when there is danger, we try to hide. Wherever we go, it's not safe because this karma vipaka is following us. Death, not only death, aging is following us. Sickness is following us. Dying is following us. So there's no refuge in the world. But only when we go for refuge to the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha and understand truly the Four Noble Truths, then when we understand really the Four Noble Truths, we attain Dhammachakku, Fayen, the eye of the Dhamma or the vision of the Dhamma. When a person attains the Dhamma, understands the Dhamma according to the original suttas of the Buddha, then the Buddha says that person has attained right view. The first path of the first factor of the Noble Eightfold Path. And once you attain the first factor of the Noble Eightfold Path, you have entered into the Noble Eightfold Path. If you have not attained the right view, you have not entered into the Noble Eightfold Path. Because the Noble Eightfold Path, you can only enter from the first factor. You cannot enter from the last factor or the seventh or the sixth factor. No other factor you can enter. Because the Buddha says, if you want to practice the Noble Eightfold Path, you must attain right view first. Because the first factor, right view, only after you attain right view, then only you can attain right thoughts, the second factor. And that will lead you to the third factor, right speech. And that will lead you to the fourth factor, right action. And that will lead you to the fifth factor, and the sixth factor, and the seventh, and the eighth. So the Noble Eightfold Path must be practiced in this way, not jump into any factor you like. So once you attain the first factor, right view, you have become an Arya because you have attained right view. And if you become an Arya, then you are safe. This is the safe refuge. One is released from all suffering. Because once you attain the first factor, you become the lowest Arya, which is the first path attainer. And the Buddha says, once you attain the first path, that means right view, it must turn into the first fruit, Sotapanna, the same lifetime. So once you become a Sotapanna, first fruition, you have a maximum of 7 more lifetimes. Not more than 7 more lifetimes, you'll be out of samsara. You'll be released from samsara already. So you are destined for enlightenment. 193. Hard to find is the thoroughbred man. He is not born everywhere. Where such a wise man is born, that clan thrives happily. This thoroughbred man can refer to an Arya. If you have an Arya, then all the people around him will benefit, will be happy, because he practices the Dhamma, he teaches the Dhamma. 194. Blessed is the birth of the Buddhas. Blessed is the enunciation or teaching of the good Dhamma. Blessed is harmony in the Sangha. And blessed is the spiritual pursuit of the united truth seekers. So if we have a Buddha with us, we are blessed. But even if we have no Buddha, we have the good Dhamma with us, we are also blessed. Because the Buddha said, the Dhamma is the Buddha's body. Once the Buddha has passed away, the Dhamma represents the Buddha. And then if the Sangha or monks is in harmony, they are practicing the spiritual path together, that also is a blessing, because when they are united, then they do their work, they cultivate the spiritual path, and they benefit all the people around them by teaching the Dhamma. 195 to 196. One who reveres those worthy of reverence, the Buddhas and their disciples, who have transcended all worldliness and passed beyond the reach of sorrow and lamentation, One who reveres such peaceful and fearless ones, his merit none can compute by any measure. So here you see, those worthy of reverence are the Buddhas and the disciples. Who are these disciples? This not only refers to the arahants, but it refers to all the aryas, the Sotapanna, Sakadagamin, Anagamin, and arahants. So if lay people, they pay respect to the Buddha and the Aryans, then the merit cannot be measured. So conversely, if you talk bad about arahants, if you talk bad about any Arya, then the evil is also uncountable. Okay, I think I'll stop here. Anything to discuss?
Okay, just now mentioned Mara looks like it's externally also a anchor for evil. So
this term Mara can refer to this Satan. In Christianity is called Satan. This Mara in Buddhism, in the Buddha's teachings, is a being who lives in the highest heaven, in the sensual desire realm. In the sensual desire realm, there are 6 heavens above the human realm, and the highest is the 6th heaven called Paranimita Vasavati. And those beings there have very great blessings. They use other devas to create what they want. Those in the 5th heaven, their blessings are also extremely high. This Paranimita Vasavati. In the 5th heaven, the blessing is so high that whatever they want, they just think about it, and it appears out of nowhere. And the 6th heaven, they use these beings to do work for them, whatever they want. So in the 6th heaven, you have a being called Mara. And this Mara, he probably was a cultivator, a monk in the previous life, or an ascetic in the previous life, because he has such great blessings to be born there. But he didn't reduce his ego. So when anybody practices a spiritual path and is near to enlightenment, that means he has attained the 4 jhanas. This Mara, out of jealousy, he will come and disturb that person. So he constantly disturbed the Buddha and the Arahan disciples. Didn't want them to continue practicing and attain enlightenment. He even disturbed this Jesus Christ and other highly attained ascetics. So this Mara will not come to disturb us until you have attained the 4th jhana. Because your own defilements will take care of you already. Mara don't have to take care of you. So this second interpretation of Mara is our own defilements. So our own defilements are basically, you can say it's greed, hatred, delusion. You can also say that it is the 5 hindrances. 5 hindrances meaning sensual desire, ill will or anger, sloth and torpor, making us sleepy and lazy, and then restlessness and worry, and the 5th one is doubt. So all these defilements make us hindrance to us on the spiritual path. So this is another way of calling Mara.
We read in the Khuddaka Nikaya, Mara was known to have possessed the mind of a Brahma realm god. And the Brahma realm is actually higher than the Mara's realm. And yeah, you have to understand that if one who was born in the Brahma realm would have cultivated their mind very well. So can explain how it's possible that Mara can possess the mind of a Brahma god?
These people who are reborn in the Brahma realm, they are, I think, of 2 kinds. One is those who practice the 1st jhana and are born there. But I think we saw in one of the suttas that if a person does a lot of charity and keeps his sila and all that, with a lot of blessings, worldly blessings, he can also be reborn in the Brahma realm. But as I mentioned, that this Mara in the sixth heaven, he was probably a person on the spiritual path before. So he might also have attained jhana because the Buddha, you must remember, the Buddha said that when he was at the time of the Buddha Kassapa, the last Buddha, our Bodhisattva, he met this Buddha Kassapa. In our earlier suttas, the Buddha only met one Buddha, not 24 Buddhas, only one Buddha. So he met the Buddha Kassapa, and then after hearing the Dhamma, he became a monk under the Buddha Kassapa. And during that lifetime under the Buddha Kassapa, he must have attained the first jhana. Because after that, he went to Tusita heaven and then came back as Siddhartha Gautama. As a small boy, maybe at the age of 10 years old, he could meditate under the jambu tree and attain the first jhana. Which shows that he had already attained the first jhana. So, since the Buddha attained the first jhana and was born in the Tusita heaven, which is only the third heaven or the fourth heaven in the sensual desire realm. So for the Mara to have been born in the sixth heaven, it is possible he might have attained even the second jhana. But because he did not constantly, abide in the second jhana, he only attained it maybe once in a while. Because he didn't abide in the second jhana constantly, so he might have been reborn in the sixth heaven. So maybe because of that, that's why he could possess the minds of these beings in the Brahma realm.
When we see the Brahma, can we advise to say that there are some who are pursuing the spiritual path, they either make or break within this lifetime for liberation, rather than end up in the Brahma realm, because it will take a long time in the Brahma realm. So that they may not be able to attain to liberation if they will be born in the Brahma realm. They may miss the boat in the sense they may not, when they are being reborn again, they might not meet the sadhana.
Yes, but then you must see that even the other heavens in the sensual desire realm, they are very, very long. So even if a person is reborn in one of the heavens in the sensual desire realm, it's very likely that when he comes back as a human being, there's no more Dhamma in the world. Just like our Buddha, he was reborn into Sita heaven, and then he came back to this world. There was no Dhamma in the world. So there's no guarantee that you will meet the Dhamma. But what is important is not so much where you are reborn. What is important is that you become an Arya. You attain the right view. Once you attain right view, understand the Dhamma is by listening to the suttas, then you are secure. You will never be reborn in the woeful plains, and you are sure of attaining Nibbana within maximum of 7 more lifetimes. So don't worry where you are reborn. The most important thing is to become an Arya. Okay, shall we end here?